Hey, this is Julia here. Welcome to the YouTube channel, Brotherhood of Light Current. Chris is our host this evening. Hey, Chris. This is a new show for Chris, and it's called his concert experiences from 1965 to 1990. So, are we ready, Chris? This is episode 3.
Yep, let's do episode 3. Here we go. Let me kick it in here. Thanks, Julia. Okay, so here we are, and once again, inspired by Sea of Tranquility to talk about the concerts I went to in the 80s, and they are classic rock, basically, all the classics. So here we go. We're going to do screen share and go to the next slideshow. Okay, here we go. So this is episode 3. 1965 to 1990, and we're going to go to the next one. Okay, so this one is 1980 to 1990, and we're going to start out now. The music is changing. Okay, it's now we got punk, we got more pop, and it just happens to be one of the first shows I went to. Really, not one of my favorite artists, but a friend of mine had tickets. Went down to the Greek Theater and saw Elton John. And we got there early because we drove down from Lake Tahoe, and we were right at the gate, and we came in, and it was festival seating with chairs, and we were like fifth row center. I mean, it was really spectacular, and he had his really good band with him that was the original band from Yellow Brick Road, and they were just great. It was really good. Then things started like changing. So the next show I saw was Devo in Reno at the basketball gym, and they had their little hats on, their little pot plant hats, and their whatever they are, flower pot hats, and they were doing that "Whip It" song. And then my friends that I used to skateboard with took me to see the Dead Kennedys down in Reno, and Jello Biafra was doing the stage diving stuff, and East Bay Ray was just rocking on the guitar, and it was just I was into it, man. I enjoyed that. And now I saw Dixie Dregs at Reno, and I had like second row seats in this dome theater downtown, and they were this just kind of jazz fusion, almost country rock sort of mix. It was Steve Morris was just an amazing picker, and then a violin player. They were a very unusual band, and the manager of the Allman Brothers, the original manager, was managing them at that point. So it's kind of cool. So that was that. Then the next one was another weird one in Reno, which was Blackfoot were the headliners, which was an American Indian band with Ricky Madlock from now Leonard Skinner. And then the original Def Leppard with this guy, this guitar player here. I don't know his name. I don't really study it, but this was their first American tour, and they were really good, man. They rocked. And then and Blackfoot was great too. They were kind of like Southern rock with a little bit rawer sound. And now this next one is one of my favorites. First show previous to this, to Black Sabbath, was the Outlaws opened up the show, and they were really great, and the audience loved them. And then it was Black Sabbath, Mob Rules with Ronnie James Dio. He just left Rainbow, and they did the Mob Rules tour, and they were fantastic. It was a great show, man. I really enjoyed it, and once again got really lucky to see this band because they only played for 2 years, and then they dissolved and moved on to another reincarnation of Black Sabbath. So now we've got Prince. Okay, so I went down to the Bay Area to see the Police, Ghost in the Machine. I was really into the Police, and I was at a friend's house before I went to the Police concert, and I ran into this guy, and he got me in to see Prince Controversy Tour the following night. So it was a doubleheader weekend. So I got to see Prince before Purple Rain, And he was more of just a straight up guitar rock singer guy than the Purple Rain thing, which was more. And then Morris Day and the Time was the opener, but there's the Police, the Cow Palace the night before. Ghost in the Machine tour was just unbelievable. They're just one of my favorite live bands of all time. Now, this next one is going to be a really interesting mix here. Here we go. And so that summer, 82, we went and saw the Grateful Dead at Ventura County Fairgrounds. And I had a t-shirt company. I made some Grateful Dead shirts and started selling them, and people loved them. They were kind of a jock version of Grateful Dead, pocket logo type stuff, and instead of the big psychedelic look. And a lot of people liked them, and we sold them and kind of paid for our weekend, and we continued doing that through the 80s as kind of a way to go to see concerts and afford to go. Uh, then I saw Jimmy Buff at the Coral Reefer Band at the Greek Theater, which is, I've talked about it on our last episode, one of the greatest venues. And my friend that I was working with was an artist, and he knew Jimmy Buffett from Aspen. They were friends, so we went kind of hung out backstage and stuff. And Buffett was, this is before Margaritaville, before Parrot, whatever. Jimmy Buffett. It was just kind of this country rock, really good quality band, and they were great, and it became kind of a cliche, and almost a cult. But I did see him that year. Then I saw Judas Priest. You Got Another Thing Coming was a big hit, and I saw them down in Reno, and they were just, heavy metal heaven, and they were just great. Loved them. Totally awesome. I can't even remember who the opener was. And then the end of the summer, this was just an amazing group. I'm going to start from let's start from the top. It was a gang of four. They're not on the poster. The Ramones, the English Beat, Oingo Boingo, B-52s, the Talking Heads with Adrian Belew on guitar, and the Police. I mean, that was just one of the best shows I saw ever. And then the second rock day was Dave Edmunds, Eddie Money, Santana, The Cars, Kinks, Pat Benatar. I think she stole the show. She was at the height of her career at that point. And then Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, which were, they were on top of the world then. And the next day was the Grateful Dead at 9 a.m. Jerry Jeff Walker. We took that set off. And Jimmy Buffett, once again, Jackson Browne, I don't even remember his set. And then Fleetwood Mac was, they just had the Tusk album, and they were just the biggest thing going. But they were a lot better when I saw them in 75 than in 82, just in general, the energy level. So this next big concert was The Who and The Clash at Oakland Coliseum. And The Who had now got a new drummer because Keith Moon had died, and The Clash had Combat Rock out, and they were one of the bigger bands going, and they sold 80,000 or 60,000 tickets in Oakland Coliseum, and it was in 82. And the Who were really great, but when I saw them in 76, I kind of smoked them. And the Clash were great. They had a really nasty attitude, and that's what they were all about. So that was really cool. Really enjoyed that show. So the next one here is a really special show. This was in 1993, and this was the Arms concert, and they did 2 in San Francisco, a couple in Dallas, and a few in New York. And it was a benefit for Ronnie Lane, and it opened up with Joe Cocker and with Eric Clapton playing Joe Cocker Band. Then the next set after that was Jeff Beck with Jan Hammer, and I don't know who the drummer was, but it was basically the Wired album. Then after that, Beck left, and Jimmy Page came on and did. He had the singer from Bad Company with him, and the Firm. They played a Firm set with Paul Rogers, And so then Paul Rogers leaves the stage. Now this is, this is like 3 hours into the show. And Jimmy goes in, brings a double neck guitar out. He goes into Stairway of Heaven. And then right during when they drop down to the 6-string lead solo, Clapton, Beck step on stage, and all three of them do the lead to Stairway to Heaven. Just spectacular. I mean, and these guys to me are the best guitar players, original guitar players around. Some of, Richie Blackmore and Tony Iommi are right in there too. So then the following year or spring, Rod Stewart goes on tour with Jeff Beck, and I got to see him, man, and that was one of my favorite bands from the Truth period. And apparently they only did like 5 shows, and I saw him in Reno. And Jeff Beck had, Rod Stewart has this huge band, and they're like these rock and roll kind of, Chuck Berry 50s kind of blaring guitars, and they sound great, And then about 2/3 of the way in the show, they leave the stage. Jeff Beck walks out, and it's Carmen Appice on drums, the bass player Jeff Beck and Rod Stewart, and Jeff Beck just blew those guitar players away. And the magic that these guys created during that 4-song, and they did stuff from Truth, was just amazing. And apparently Jeff Beck left the tour after 5 shows. So I just got so lucky to see him, man. And he's, that was one of my favorite rock bands of 68, 69. So just really, really lucky. And so now we're going to move on to the next one. And David Bowie was did Oakland Coliseum on the Serious Moonlight tour, or Let's Dance. And it was with the Tubes at Oakland Coliseum. And this was what the show looked like up here. And it was great. And they did, Stevie Ray Vaughan was on the record, but they had Earl Slick on guitar. He was really good too. And then we had, I saw him in Denver. I went out to see the Grateful Dead at Red Rocks on the way to Telluride. And I saw this Glass Spider tour in at Mile High Stadium. And Peter Frampton was the guitar player. And I don't know, it was a great tour. One of the bigger production tours of the 1980s. And Duran Duran was the opener. And they were good too, even though they're pop. And then I saw the Pretenders and the Simple Minds played in Reno at the new Coliseum. So that was a really great show. Now, the Glass Spider tour I just mentioned was later on, but I just put Bowie all on one page. But I saw him. They were 6 years apart, those tours. And then for me, one of the great tours, a great comeback tour of all times, was Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. And I went and saw them at the Cow Palace in San Francisco in 1985. And they were just, out of this world, man, just unbelievable. One of the great shows, the 80s, they just brought all that stuff back. And I just was so happy because when I saw them in 72, they were probably one of the best bands I'd ever seen in my life. And wasn't quite as good as 72 because they were just so raw and so into it. But they were still really good. It was great. It was a really great tour. So I'm really lucky to see that one. Now here we go to Bob Dylan and Tom Petty in Reno. And they did like a Rolling Stone. And, Bob's voice was fantastic on this tour. His voice is going to change in, the 2000s, or 90s, but he was on it. And Tom Petty was a great backup band and a great harmonizing vocalist with him. And it was great. And then I saw this Yes tour with in Reno. And this was 1985-84 tour. And it was really good, but I just felt that there was a few too many high notes in the overall performance. It was kind of, your ears were kind of ringing at the end of it from so much soprano vocals, but still they were great. They had a really dynamic looking stage, and it was pretty cool. So now I'm just doing a lump sum Grateful Dead because I saw them at the Greek Theater maybe 3 or 4 times, or 3 or 4 times a year for 4 or 5 years at the Greek, and then they played at Ventura, and they played at Oakland Auditorium, and they played at Laguna Seca Speedway, which is this shot. And I got to see Jerry Garcia so many times, and for 20 years, and just once again really lucky to experience Grateful Dead. And we had some t-shirt stuff going on we were selling, and we would it was a great party, man. We had a good time, almost too good of a party. Anyway, if you know what I mean. Then we saw Van Halen in the 5150 tour, uh, and with Sammy Hagar, who I loved, and I got to see Van Halen, and he was top of his game. Probably not as good as the earlier Van Halen, but I'm not complaining. I got to see him, um, and I love Sammy. So for me, it was another great concert to go to. Um, so now um, we're in 1988, or no, 87, and I got to see her 88. Uh, 88, Pink Floyd down in Sacramento, and there was Roger Waters was not with them on this tour, but they had a spectacular stage set up with all kinds of laser beams, and they were fantastic, and stereophonic sound, and it was it was where concerts were going to go, and were going, and they were one of the first guys to take it to this next level. And great show, really enjoyed it. And then I saw the Moody Blues in Reno, and got to see them. I don't think they toured much after that, but they were still pretty much in rare form, and another great band. And then Jerry Garcia and Bonnie Raitt at the Greek Theater, which was kind of cool to see them play together. And then I was I was in the Brotherhood of Light at this point. I was living in back in San Francisco, and we got hired to do the Jefferson Airplane for 3 nights at the Fillmore Auditorium. And so I saw them play the Greek Theater. The Bill Graham people took me over there to, hey man, let's go to the show and get, we're going to be doing a show. Then we did 3 nights at the Fillmore with our light show. And then I saw them at Golden Gate Park play for free at the polo field. So, that was great too. I mean, they haven't played ever since. So got to see Jefferson Airplane, which was kind of full circle for me because that was one of the first concerts I saw in 68 in Golden Gate Park. And now I got to do them in 88. So it was 20 years later, I got to see him, luckily. Then my career took the huge jump, and I went on tour with the Allman Brothers, and this is basically representing 1990, 1991. And it was Greg Allman, Dickie Betts, Warren Haynes, Alan Woody, J-Mo. Mark Quinones was in the band also at that time, Butch Trucks. And I did this album cover with them where I supplied the artwork. Me and Kirk West collaborated on this with Sony Records. This one of the t-shirt designs I did, and this mushroom I created. And this was a photo session we did, which is just, I don't know where I got it, but I was there herding the band around to get these photos taken for our promo for that year with Kirk West, who was the photographer. And then this was the Where It All Begins artwork, which I used a lot in the light show throughout the 90s. So there it is, the Brotherhood of Light show with the Allman Brothers Band. and family from 1990 to 2001. I'm still touring with them, and Devin and Dwayne and Barry Oakley Jr. So that's a whole nother chapter, but this was the chapter previous to me becoming a professional touring light show artist with the Allman Brothers Band. And I toured with the Starship, Robert Plant, the Dead, and the Doors of the 21st Century. So anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. This is our episode 3, and I'm trying to get a little more rock and roll, in and just not light shows. But I'm going to go back and sign off here with you guys. And so anyway, um, hope you enjoyed the show, and maybe I'll come up with another concept and do something else in the future. But these are going to be released, and I'll be putting them out once a week, and uh, August 2021. So look forward to seeing you guys getting some likes and views on YouTube. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot. Enjoy.